In a word full of dangers, the most powerful warrior in the kingdom is a simple farmer. In a magical word, a group of adventurers fight a dragon in the forest and are surprised to see that the creature possesses an S rank, so there is nothing their combined efforts can do to defeat the creature. In the distance, the farmer works in his garden and confuses that loud roar and flashes with explosions, so he doesn't give it too much importance. After harvesting his vegetables, he manages to raise his farming skills to level 10, being able to unlock those skills on a video game-style screen, because there's nothing better than having a bright sign that constantly reminds you of what you are worth. Al comments his level increase to his friend Testa, who reminds him that not so long ago, his level in fishing also reached that score, which is rare, since Testa, who is a fisherman, has no level 10 and does. Al attributing his skills to a blessing called growth promotion when his statistics poster recommends merging all his skills. The young man discovers that he is blessed by another skill called the grace of the earth. Testa is surprised to see that for some reason, our hero has increased his warrior skills to 73,612 points. Al is surprised, but equally doesn't give it much importance, since warrior skills are useless for a farmer, and he sets out to take his crops to market, without thinking twice about what happened. However, during the trip to the city, our hero sees the adventurers fighting the S-rank dragon and tries to distract it by throwing a carrot, only for the carrot to kill the dragon after causing an explosion. Our product continues her journey, but the adventurers, intrigued, decide to investigate who could have destroyed the dragon and find the tracks of the cark. In the city of Mades, a criminal kidnaps Princess Falwys, but with his new perception skills, Al dodges the kidnapper's attacks and defeats him, allowing the guards to arrest the criminal. Falwys thanks Al for his help, but the young man, realizing that the market is about to close, runs away, leaving her with the gratitude hanging, where he finishes his business. But when he wants to withdraw from the capital, Falwys prevents him, and thanks him for the help in the right way, and offers him a place in the castle. Al doesn't want anything to do with the offer, as he hates royalty, but he keeps his opinions to himself and respectfully rejects the offer and tries to withdraw, but Falwys prevents him. Falwys explains that the kidnapper had more than 500 warrior points, something impressive since normal humans usually only have 50, and yet Al defeated him, so he offers him a field of 33,000 square meters to cultivate. At the same time, the adventurers return after defeating the dragon, but refuse to claim responsibility and admit that someone else helped them. He takes advantage of this and flees to his fields. Later, news reaches Mades of an army of monsters that had not been seen since the death of Macbeth the Demon Lord. Macbeth had led the war against humanity, but after his death, humans and demons had managed to put together a peace treaty, which apparently risks breaking down. Officer Cecil demands that they destroy the army, but after luring Falwys and his father the king away from Mades, he reveals that he is actually Romeo Van Dead, Macbeth's demon general, and that he intends to assassinate Falwys and the king, and then impersonate the king to rule Mades himself. Cecil, who gives me distrust, asks the king and the princess to flee, since it was thanks to his humanity that the king did not destroy all the demons, and now he must pay for that act of kindness, being attacked by the demons. That is, he tells him that he is a good person, but that it is his fault what is happening. That night, Hal comes home and still doesn't control his new battle skills, accidentally destroying the doorknob. He's too tired and just wants to sleep. However, his rest is interrupted by Testas, who warns him that an army of demons is approaching Mades in the countryside. Worried that the demons will trample his crops, our hero heads to the field, only to find them safe and sound, but still manages to spot the army of demons. Al wonders if he should intervene or not because he worries that the army will destroy Mades and leave him nowhere to sell his vegetables. Meanwhile, Cecil directs the king and princess into a trap, where he attacks the king and reveals himself to be Romeo Van Dead. Romeo attacks the royal family, planning to assassinate them, and uses powers to shapeshift and take the king's place. The family tries to protect themselves, but their powers are no match against those of the devil. When all seems lost, Al comes to the rescue and effortlessly defeats Romeo. As a reward, Falwys offers Al again a 33,000 square meter field to cultivate, in exchange for him registering as an adventurer to serve the kingdom when needed. Not having too many options, Al accepts, but realizes that he has been deceived when he visits the countryside and finds a wasteland unsuitable for farming. Falwys, who has taken a personal interest in our hero, guides our hero on a tour within the kingdom, and when Al asks her if she does not have something better to do, that is, work, she replies that currently her tasks as a princess are carried out by her trusted maid Albie, in disguise. Ys takes Al to the Adventurers Guild, and our hero reminds her that he is not very enthusiastic about the idea, since all he wants is to be a farmer. She understands, but gives him no choice, also reminds him not to reveal his identity to the guild members, since no one should know that she is actually Ys, and asks him to call on Philia. Al tells her that she will still be discovered when they recognize her. After all, she is the princess. More famous than that is not achieved. But she tells him that she is actually wearing a magical accessory that prevents people from recognizing her. Having covered all the angles to avoid comments from fussy fans, it's time to start with the blessed story. In the guild hall, Al discovers that rumors about his exploits have begun to circulate, and he is greeted with kindness by the other adventurers. Helen, the secretary of the kingdom, receives him kindly and invites him to lunch. During the interview, our hero is greeted by the adventurers of the Dragon Affair, Jake, Lamia, and Luke, who have finally discovered that it was our hero who was responsible for having helped them, which does nothing but increase the popularity of our farmer, who just wants to dedicate himself to his humble task. The adventurers invite him to be part of the guild, and Al feels that with each encounter, his previous life fades more and more, and soon he will not be able to devote himself to his passion. Al requests a mission, but discovers that despite his power, he is still a beginner, so there are missions that pay well, but outside his range. Helen tells him that with his abilities he will soon be able to ascend to S rank, but inside himself, Hal promises himself that this will not happen, since what he least wants is to excel more in a task that he does not like. Al accepts his first quest, so Helen gives him his old robe as a beginner's team. Helen tells him that with his abilities he will soon be able to ascend to S rank, but inside himself, Hal promises himself that this will not happen, since what he least wants is to excel more in a task that he does not like. Hal accepts his first quest, so Helen gives him his old robe as a beginner's team. Later, in the forest, while our hero collects the herbs, Al is attacked by a female orc with intentions to mate with him, who grabs him by surprise but is rescued by Jake, one of the adventurers. Luke and Lamia arrive. Hal thanks them and shows them a strange scale he found in the forest, which Jake recognizes as the scale of a black dragon, but it is said that it is not possible, less in that forest. However, the super rare black dragon appears, bringing with it an aura so terrifying that even Al freezes in fear. Luckily for him and his friends, the dragon completely ignores them. That night, Helen suffers nightmares and memory lapses. Al informs the dragon to the guildbat, when assessing his statistics of 230,000, identifies him as Ouroboros the Malevolent. The name activates something in Helen's memories, and the young woman abruptly recalls a buried memory of her brother Rai, who was killed by Ouroboros and was the original wearer of Al's new robe. Helen's adoptive mother, One, is surprised that Helen gave Al her robe, explaining that when she found Helen as a child all she had was amnesia and that robe. A young postman named Reeks hands Al a letter from his mother. Hal goes to the library to research on Ouroboros, but the official books do not give him much information, so he asks for access to real records. But the librarian denies him access, since our hero does not possess the necessary rank to access that information. However, Ys appears and orders the librarian to give him access to our hero, so Al and Ys access the reports of the day Helen was found and discover that Ouroboros had destroyed the town of Arnold, which could have been Helen's birthplace. They also learn that Ouroboros was supposedly killed by his enemy dragon Mirage the Benevolent. Searching Arnold, Hal encounters Rai as a ghost, though Ys is unable to see him, and Rai explains that he has waited 15 years for someone who could see him. When he talks to Rai, who explains that the cape that our hero wears is the same one he wore when he was alive and was charged with a strong protective energy. Noticing that Ys cannot see the child, Hal deduces that communication is made possible by the cloak, so he wraps the princess with her. Ys is embarrassed to be embraced by our hero but is shocked when he is suddenly able to see Rai, a product of the cape's power. Rai introduces himself to the two as Helen's younger brother. Ys tells Rai that Helen doesn't remember much about her past, and her brother understands that she may have suppressed the horrible memories of what happened in her village, but also warns our heroes that the young woman could be in danger. 15 years ago, Rai and Helen lived in Arnold, where the boy dreamed of becoming a warrior capable of protecting his sister. On a day like any other, Ouroboros appeared out of nowhere and destroyed the village completely, although we witness how Ouroboros first terrorized his victims to feed on their souls full of despair. The two brothers, knowing that there's no other option, decide to flee, but the dragon catches up with them and attacks Helen, who is saved at the last moment when her brother stabs the dragon, causing no harm, but infuriating him enough to become his victim instead of his sister. Before leaving, the dragon tells the girl that within 15 years she will return to Thebe and says goodbye, leaving Helen alive so that she could spread the story, causing fear in other human peoples so that in 15 years, when Ouroboros returned, a new feast of human despair would be ready. Rai turned into a ghost so he could keep an eye on Helen and now warns Al that Ouroboros will want Helen in the city of Medes. Al worries that he is not strong enough, but Rai tells him that if Ouroboros feeds on despair, the opposite emotions should weaken him. Rai asks Al to convey that message of hope to his sister, and our hero, along with Phao rush back to Medes to prepare the return of Ouroboros. When the two arrive in Medes, Al heads to talk to Helen, while Phao returns to the palace to prepare the royal troops for the imminent arrival of the evil dragon. However, Hal does not find Helen in his room, since the young woman has had a dream where she reunites with Ouroboros that reminds him of the events of his childhood, the attack on the town, and the death of his brother, in addition to warning him that he will soon arrive in the kingdom to feed on the frightened souls of the people. Helen, driven by her memories of Rai's death, confronts Ouroboros in the forest to offer her life in exchange for Medes. Ouroboros accepts the sacrifice of the young woman, but mocks her, assuring her that it will not affect his plans, since once dead, the same will feed on the people of the kingdom. Al finds Helen before he can take his own life, and a furious Ouroboros beats him, throwing him against a tree. Luckily, our hero survives thanks to the protective power of Rai's cape. Al recovers, and when Ouroboros challenges him as a warrior, he reminds him that he is actually a farmer and hits Ouroboros so hard that he hurts him. The dragon stands up, having learned the lesson of not underestimating our hero, and attacks him with force. When Helen asks Al to flee, the farmer tells her that he will protect her, reminding her of Rai's last words. Al and Ouroboros fight, and even though the dragon's powers have diminished, the same turns out to be a challenge for our hero, who strives on the defensive. Al decides to flee with Helen, who feels guilty for her brother's death, but Al passes Helen a message from Rai in which he tells her that his death was not her fault and that she must forgive herself. Helen's soul is filled with hope, a deadly poison for Ouroboros. The dragon, whose stats plummet, attacks our heroes, but is greeted by Al with a punch that knocks him unconscious. Al celebrates his victory when Helen approaches him, and to our hero's surprise, plunges a knife into his stomach, mortally wounding him while showing a sinister smile. Helen's attack takes our hero by surprise, who can use neither his recovery potions nor his own magic to recover, since the young woman's attacks are too fast to allow him to concentrate. When Helen is about to deliver the final blow, Hal is abruptly saved by Mirage, the benevolent dragon, who reveals that Helen is possessed by Ouroboros and thus grants Ao his purification magic to heal his wound, being weakened in the process, so the dragon lies down for a while to get some air while Al finishes the job. Meanwhile, in the castle, a fearful Phao organizes the troops, putting the people of the city under protection and organizing the troops to march against the dreaded dragon, although she knows that deep down, her efforts could be futile. Ouroboros is confident that Al will not attack Helen, only for Al to surprise him with a powerful blow. The dragon cannot believe such an act of aggression, but Al reveals that Helen had communicated with Al using her eyes, giving him permission to do whatever was necessary to eliminate the dragon threat, even destroy it. In this way, Ouroboros leaves Helen's body, freeing the young adventurer. However, it's all a farce, and when Al takes Helen's hand, Ouroboros tries to possess our hero, but discovers that his mind is only filled with pure desire to cultivate. No negative thoughts to manipulate. Ouroboros is expelled and purified by Mirage. Later, Hal wakes up in Medes, where Helen and Phao, disguised as Philia, reveal that Mirage has also disappeared. Helen reveals that she can now turn any part of her body into dragon limbs at will, which she intends to use to protect others and live happily in Rai's memory. Helen, curious, asks Philia what her relationship with Al is, since she has always seen her littering near the young man, and both the princess and Al respond that they are childhood friends. While our heroes recover, Hal receives a visit from his adventurous friends who congratulate him on his feat and assure him that he will soon receive a reward from the crown, embarrassing Phao, who assures him that he will be rewarded. That night, the adventurers celebrate, and although Ao is having fun, he can only think about his fields. Phao, who has already learned to know him, notices and gives him permission to visit his fields. which for our hero is the equivalent of a day of rest, which excites him, since it is time to harvest the potatoes. Ys also confesses that while preparing the troops to fight the evil dragon, she was very scared, and the only thing that motivated her to continue was to think that he was out there, fighting with all his strength. Days later, Al works in his fields with his friend Testa, who asks him if maintaining his fields and those of the kingdom is not much work, and he replies that it is not, but that he prefers 1,000 times his own fields to the life of adventurer. Suddenly the duo is reached by the postman Reeks, who cries out for his own series and has become the most interesting character in this whole mess, who gives Al a letter from his father asking him to visit them in Larugus since they have not known about him for a long time, and they wonder if the motive is that he has met a young lady. Not encouraged to abandon his obligations to the crown, so he decides not to go to visit his parents, but after a trip to the market and try some tomatoes from Larugos, he decides to go, since Larugos is famous for its agriculture and its excellent fertilizer. Helen grants Al a vacation and takes over his active missions, revealing with her dragon limbs that she is now an F-rank adventurer. Ys learns of our hero's journey and asks Al to allow him to accompany him to meet his parents in order to thank them on behalf of the crown for all the work his son has done for them, but fearing that taking a girl to his parents may cause misunderstandings, Al quickly leaves alone, leaving the princess with the word in her mouth. On his journey, Al is almost attacked by a male orc crazed by lust, which apparently is his weakness, because dragons and monsters there are no problems, but orcs and heat, that if it affects him. When the orc is about, say, officially, our hero is rescued at the last minute by a young woman with blue hair. After rescuing Al, the young woman asks him if he is okay, and the traumatized young man replies that everything is fine and that he hates orcs, although as has been demonstrated, the feeling is not mutual, since for some reason the orcs love him. When the adventurer asks him what he does alone in such a dangerous place, he replies that he is an adventurer, and she also introduces herself as one. The girl, Ruri, offers to accompany Al to Larugus, but our hero hesitates, mostly because he knows that the trip has to take more than a day, which would force them to sleep together in the same place, and thinks what could happen. Ruri reassures him, telling him that as soon as she suspects that the young man plans to carry out some kind of movement, she will cut off his head without thinking. Ruri clarifies that it is a joke, since she does not distrust Al, and she does not consider herself cute enough to provoke some kind of feeling in our hero. When Al corrects her, telling her that she is actually a beautiful woman, Ruri thanks her for the compliment, although she is convinced that she is saying it only out of kindness. Al thinks about explaining that he doesn't say it out of kindness, but he can't find a way to say it that doesn't make things worse, so the two continue the journey to Larugus, before more works arrive. Along the way, Wuri detects a presence approaching them at high speed, and the two adventurers are on their guard. The figure turns out to be none other than our favorite postman Reeks, who somehow manages to find them and gives them another letter from Al's mugger. Reeks leaves, and when Ruri worries that the letter is urgent, Hal reassures her and shows her the mountain of letters her mother constantly sends her and tells her that this is the reason she is traveling to Larugus. He also explains that one of his reasons is to get fertilizer from Larugus, to be able to plant sweet tomatoes, for he bores her quickly, since the young woman is an adventurer, not a farmer like him. When Al asks where her parents think of her traveling and being adventurous, Ruri is saddened by this as her own family doesn't care about her at all. Ruri camps, revealing that her bag can hold numerous large objects despite its small size, taking a tent out of it. The warrior explains that the bag is one of the items in her possession inherited from her ancestor. When Ruri is about to reveal the identity of said ancestor, Al's stomach rings from hunger, and the two prepare for dinner. While having dinner, Ruri reveals to our hero that she is training to become a heroine and has heard that Larugus is plagued by accidents and demon sightings. Al asks her why she needs to train, and she confesses that she does it to reach the level of her ancestor, the hero who defeated the demon lord Macbeth. When Al shows concern for the well-being of young Ruri, he becomes paralyzed, feeling for the first time that someone cares about her. The two go to sleep, and despite Ruri's insistence on sharing the tent with him, Al insists on sleeping outside on the floor. She gives up and goes to sleep, but scares Al by telling him that the orcs could visit him at night, and once and for all gets him into the blissful tent. The next day, arriving in Larugus, Ruri is saddened by their separation, so Al asks her to accompany him back home in a week. Ruri asks the inhabitants of the city if there have been sightings of demons, But no one seems to know what she is talking about, so the young woman believes she has received false information. Fearing to disappoint her ancestor, the young woman decides to investigate further when she meets a peasant woman who asks for help, since her sister was kidnapped by a demon and taken to the Forest of Illusions. Ruri rushes to the rescue as a mysterious man watches in the distance. When visiting his parents, his mother Lucica, an overly affectionate housewife, and his father Gillis, a muscular farmer. However, the meeting is a bit bumpy when the father of our hero does not recognize his son and believes that he is someone who is hugging his wife and beats him. And then he is the one beaten by the woman. After sorting out the misunderstanding, the family sets out for dinner. But by just mentioning Ruri, Lucica goes insane, claiming that Ao is too young for girls, marriage, and babies, comically punishing both Ao and Gillis. Gillis is suspicious of Ruri, as there are definitely no accidents or sightings of demons in Marugus. Besides, the man is sure that if there really was in the village the suffering that Ruri says exists, his mother would have noticed. This curious Ao, who does not understand what his father means, but the man changes the subject and sends him to sleep. After buying his fertilizer, Hal observes how a man has been injured by the attack of a demon. The man tells him that a young woman with blue hair saved his life but disappeared into the Forest of Illusions. Hal comes to Ruri's aid, and the man stops, revealing that everything is a lie, and even the people around him were an illusion. In the forest, Ao is reunited with Ruri after being rescued by giant shape-shifting worms. The man appears smiling, revealing that he has manipulated them with powerful illusion magic and even lured Ruri to Larugus in the first place with false demon rumors, as he knows that she is a descendant of the hero. The man mocks Ruri for being so easily fooled and assures her that she is not heroine material. When our heroes demand that he identifies himself, the mysterious man reveals himself to be Loki Diva and his eyes change color. When Ruri asks why she got Ao, if the target was her, Loki states that Ao is also part of his plan. Loki shows that he recognizes Ao for his exploits of having defeated Romeo and the dragon Ouroboros. Ao asks him if he is an accomplice of the two creatures, and Loki affirms that he is not, and even offends him to be compared to either of them. Tired of so much talk, Ruri pounces, sword in hand, against the mysterious enemy. Loki dodges the blow smoothly and knocks out Ruri with one blow. When Ao uses his healing powers on Ruri, Loki regrets not attacking him first. Ruri apologizes to Ao for failing to defeat the villain, but Ao goes on the attack, confident that his farming skills are better than that of a warrior. Loki squanders Ao's attack and delivers a withering blow, leaving only a crater on the ground. However, Hal emerges from the crater intact and manages to have one of his blows hit the villain's face. However, this is not enough to defeat him, so Loki responds with a blow of equal power that sends him flying through the air. As he watches as Loki heals his wounds, and the villain understands the power of the young man, and because neither Romeo nor Ouroboros were able to defeat him, although he also admits that neither of them would have succeeded, there are that they were only pawns. Unlike him, while Loki talks alone, Hal takes the opportunity to heal, and the villain congratulates him for having dealt a blow, but also warns him that the fight is about to end, and our hero has no chance to win. Ao asks Loki why he considers it important, and the villain, although he knows that the question is only a strategy to buy time, decides to tell him a little about his ploy. Loki reveals to Ao that he is eliminating all elements that may interfere with the plan, being his first targets being him and Ruri, but also Helen, with her dragon powers. Loki also reveals that Ruri, being a hero, has received the powers of the god of good, just as the king of demons has received the powers of the god of evil, which I believe were granted by the god of obviousness. Ruri does not believe Loki's words, but he tells her that she has failed to collect the powers of the god of good. Loki gets tired of talking and attacks our heroes again using his giant worms, and the two heroes must work as a team to fight them. Ruri insists I'll run away, but the young man refuses, claiming that if he leaves, he will become the worst farmer in the world, so he continues to fight relentlessly. When his worms are defeated, Loki changes tactics and bombards our heroes with energy beams that hit them directly. However, the two are still alive, and even Ao manages to stand up, but is attacked again by the worms that this time manage to catch him with their fangs. Loki admits that he did not plan to fight Ao, since his goal was only Ruri, but he is equally glad that he went above and beyond his duty. And while the worms suck the life of our hero, the villain prepares to give a mortal blow against our heroine. Defeated, Ruri remembers how her parents supported her in her desire to become a hero, and regrets letting them down. However, the worms turn to stone and are destroyed, when Al reveals that what they were biting was his backpack with fertilizer, a powerful blood thinner that also serves as a pesticide. After being poisoned, the worms are unable to regenerate and Al goes back to fighting. But due to his injuries, his powers are too weak, and he is no match for the demon. Ruri sees how Al continues to fight without energy and how Loki plays with him, and realizes that despite fighting a losing battle, our hero does not give up no matter what. In this way, the young woman gains the necessary courage and attacks Loki, but this time releasing the power of the god of good. Ruri defeats Loki and tends to Al's wounds, confessing to him while the young man is fainting that she is falling in love with him. Night comes and when he wakes up, Ruri tells him that he did not move it because he does not know the forest and was afraid of getting lost, so the two start walking. In the middle of the forest, a voice calls to Al and he recognizes his mother's voice, and fearing what could happen to Ruri if he finds them together, Al runs out with his frame in his arms. The next day, Al says goodbye to his mother, who asks him if he is still determined to be a farmer, to which the young man answers yes. On the way back home, he is reunited with Ruri and the two travel together, knowing that despite having defeated Loki, the two are targeted by other demons. In Nagi's, the princess awaits Ael's return and is summoned by her father the king. In the past, we see how the king says goodbye to Princess Fao, and in the middle of the reign he apologizes for being an incompetent king, and she comforts him by saying that he is not, and she will do everything possible to help. After all things are as they should be. Back in the present and after his battle against Loki, Al returns to the guild offices and introduces Ruri to Helen, and the two young women seem to get along, although in reality it is only a facade, since immediately the two realize that the other can be a problem to conquer our favorite gardener. Later, on his farm, Al catches a boy stealing the vegetables, but in reality he is not angry with the boy for stealing his vegetables, but for taking them out too soon, and now they will not be delicious. Seeing that the child is hungry, he gives him a ripe cabbage. Helen explains that when Al was a Marugus, demons began attacking Magis, disrupting food distribution and causing prices to skyrocket. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the city, Helen's words come true when we discover that the city is under siege by a huge horde of monsters, the kingdom's most powerful warriors, and even Al uses his super strength to get rid of them all. But the surge is endless. Our heroes are surrounded and outnumbered. But when all seems lost, reinforcement troops from the neighboring kingdom of Andesburg come to the rescue, and their leader, wielding a sacred sword, Levatine, manages to tell the monsters to leave. The monsters, seeing the sword, obey, and without making any kind of problem they retreat back to the forest. Com returns to the kingdom, but one night, Fao goes to Ael's house to say goodbye, telling him that he will never return. The young princess walks away and our hero doesn't understand what's happening. The next day, the mother of the child thief comes to apologize and, to compensate, buys him some products and tells him that she works as a seamstress, in case he ever needs her services. Soon in the newspapers, the engagement of Princess Fao with the Prince of Andesburg is made public, but Helen and Ruri wonder if it was not a marriage of convenience, since the kingdom would do very well to have an alliance with a kingdom that has a sword capable of driving away monsters. The young women have another suspicion, since it seems strange to them that the monsters have obeyed the order to retreat, since after all, they are not able to understand human words. It is then that Al enters and makes Helen and Ruri read a letter from Lucica, his mother, who reveals that his investigations have discovered that the magic sword of Levatine of Magic has nothing, since it is an ordinary sword made by a blacksmith of the heap. When the young women wonder how our hero's mother has access to this information, they discover that Lucica is part of an elite intelligence unit called the Shadow Puppets, which not even his son knew. Anyway, she claims that Levatine is fake and that the one who summoned the monsters to Mades is a single demon whose lover has been taken hostage. Hence he is doing this against his own will. Hence, when Mades offered his princess's hand, it is in exchange for protection, something that our heroes are not willing to accept. The problem is to enter Andesburg because they have strict laws to enter, but Reeks Bowen, the postman who has always delivered Ael's mail, has a plan. Meanwhile, the Prince of Andesburg, Netalus, has many requests. The other kingdoms are willing to give him large sums of money or to make him very good commercial deals in exchange for his protection, which apparently is his goal from the beginning since he is aware that the mythical sword is a falsehood. That night the prince is proud of his plan and tells the demon Dizel to order his hordes to attack other neighboring countries and thus continue to take advantage, but the demon refuses, as he does not want his fellow demons to attack humans since in many cases his demons are also hurt in battles just like humans. The prince beats Gazelle and reminds her that he is in charge and that if she refuses, her bride will suffer the worst of punishments. Fowl appears and witnesses the situation but mistakes Gazelle for an ordinary servant, so he reprimands the prince for mistreating him, but does not realize the evil young man's plan. The two talk and the prince tell Fowl that he realizes his true feelings, that he does not want to be with him, but hopes that he will change his mind when the engagement ceremony takes place the next day. The other day he arrives and in the village, Hao is going to pick up some clothes in the business of the mother of the thief child and is very satisfied with the result. Our heroes gather in a nearby carriage where the postman is confirmed that they have the free pass to enter the kingdom and rescue Fao while he is dedicated to getting the evidence to prove the scam of Prince Netulus and thus cancel the ceremony legally. When asked how he will be able to catch different monsters and achieve his mission, the postman takes off his hat revealing that he is a demon, in addition to being part of the shadow puppets. The young postman reveals that despite being a demon, he was raised by humans, and seeks peace between the two races, as happened with the demon who fell in love with a human, but now she is a prisoner of Netulus and forces the demon to lead his hordes against humans against their will. Al promises that they will free both Fowl and the demons and the group sets off to fulfill their mission. That night, Princess Fowl talks to herself, and it is said that although she believed that she would be able to continue with the engagement, she still thinks of Al. Netulus, who is eavesdropping, wonders who this Al will be. On the day of the wedding, Princess Fowl prepares and although she has changed her mind due to her feelings towards Al, her obligation as a princess is above her wishes and now the most important thing is to protect her subjects and if that is achieved by marrying Netulus. While preparations are taking place in the cathedral, Hal and her friends arrive in the kingdom and are able to enter, but now they must head to the church without causing suspicion. For this, Al reveals his plan, which includes wearing the costumes he ordered, so they can mingle and reach their destination which is to rescue the Zell's girlfriend, end the war and go to church with enough evidence to stop Netulus. The young women admit that while it is correct, the plan is a bit simple. And their confidence drops much less when they see that Al's excellent costumes are actually gardening suits. Al tells them that this way they will go unnoticed and although the girls are not sure, they feel praised when our hero tells them that those clothes fit them nicely. The plan is a disaster almost immediately when the guards find it suspicious that some farmers want to see the king and chase our prota who accidentally ends up in the castle room where the Zell's girlfriend is imprisoned, so he is able to free her and flees the place. The next step is the cathedral where the wedding will take place. Reeks, the postman watches from the outskirts of the kingdom and tells himself it's time to fulfill his part of the plan. At the church, the wedding is about to begin, and Fowl's father, who has realized his daughter's sacrifice, gives her the opportunity to cancel the wedding, but she replies that it will not be necessary, after all it is his obligation. Al is arriving at the church, but is surrounded by the guards, so Rory and Helen attack them with the intention of serving as bait so that Al can reach his destination. The plan works and the guards chase them, forgetting about our hero. At the church, the wedding takes place, and Fowl is about to get married, but at the last minute Al appears and causes a scandal by interrupting the wedding. Netulus recognizes Al and accuses him of wanting to cancel the wedding. Our hero, on the other hand, accuses the prince of being responsible for the attacks of the demons. The prince scoffs at such an accusation, but Al tells him that if he doesn't, and the sword is truly magical, to take care of the demons that are invading the kingdom right now. It is revealed that Reek's plan is to lead a horde of demons and attack the kingdom to prove that Netulus is a fake. Netulus wants to continue the charade and forces Gazelle to free herself from the monsters, but the demon, who has been reunited with his beloved, refuses and reveals that the sword is fake. A demon destroys the miraculous sword, exposing the lie, and only then does Gazelle tell the monsters to retreat. Netellus reveals that she has likewise launched a horde of demons into the kingdom of Foul, but Helen and Ruri reveal that the adventurers and the rest of the people are working for free to defend the kingdom. Humiliated, the prince tries to murder Foul's father, but Al saves him at the last minute with a radish. Netellus orders his guards to execute his enemies, but having witnessed the situation, the men refuse, so the defeated prince is arrested. Foul hugs Al and tells him that he wants to marry him, which makes his two companions jealous, and although the young man tells him that they cannot marry because of the class difference, the proud king welcomes him to the family by making the bland super uncomfortable with everyone. Reeks later appears to the king, giving him proof of Netellus' scam, but warns him that the documents imply that the prince is working for someone else, as well as revealing that he is part of the shadow puppet group. Back home, Al is greeted as a hero and the princess arrives at the Adventurers Guild office with rewards from the crown and gratitude for protecting the kingdom. In addition, the adventurers thank Al as now his reputation has improved a lot and job offers rain down on them. The princess becomes affectionate with Al and both Helen and Ruri become jealous as they must now compete with a princess who is too familiar to them. In true Clark Kent style, the princess leaves and appears and introduces herself to Ruri, who is immediately identified as her rival for the young farmer's heart. Later, while Sao is working, Foul and Ruri ask him which of the two they like better, but he ignores them, giving importance to his garden. When Ruri asks him if there is anyone else, he answers yes, and walks away, leaving them astonished. After, Al leaves his best vegetables on the table in front of a photo where he is hugging a mysterious girl. We go back 15 years in Al's past. That even as a child he is super efficient as a young farmer. Lucica gets angry with the young man's father because he thinks that the man forces his son to do all the heavy lifting, which gets him into trouble even though it is not like that. Nearby, a couple of farmers are angry because they have caught the little orphan thief Mangilvia because she has stolen too much from them. She manages to escape back to the mountains. He follows her and leaves her food. While at first she is reluctant, but every day, Al comes to visit her and feeds her food while she slowly opens up. The two young men become friends and share lunch, but one day, luck runs out and the farmers soon catch her. The farmers have decided to sell her as a slave to recover the losses, which leads us to think about how much she could have stolen, or in any case, how much a slave leaves in that world. Although Al pleads with him and promises that he will grow enough produce to compensate them, he does not succeed. Suddenly Al's father appears carrying a sack of rice and tells the farmers that he will give them the rice as it covers the losses of the stolen vegetables. Partly out of respect and partly out of fear, the farmers accept the offer and leave satisfied. The children are safe, but the one who will not be safe will be Al's father, when he must explain to Lucica that he lost his rice, but that is a problem for later, and the kind man invites the girl to eat with them at home. Reeks, the postman, watches from the outskirts of the kingdom and tells himself it's time to fulfill his part of the plan. At the church, the wedding is about to begin, and Foul's father, who has realized his daughter's sacrifice, gives her the opportunity to cancel the wedding, but she replies that it will not be necessary. After all, it is his obligation. Al is arriving at the church, but is surrounded by the guards, so Ruri and Helen attack them with the intention of serving as bait so that Al can reach his destination. The plan works and the guards chase them, forgetting about our hero. At the church, the wedding takes place, and Foul is about to get married, but at the last minute Al appears and causes a scandal by interrupting the wedding. Netellus recognizes Al and accuses him of wanting to cancel the wedding. Our hero, on the other hand, accuses the prince of being responsible for the attacks of the demons. The prince scoffs at such an accusation, but Al tells him that if he doesn't, and the sword is truly magical, to take care of the demons that are invading the kingdom right now. It is revealed that Reek's plan is to lead a horde of demons and attack the kingdom to prove that Netellus is a fake. Netellus wants to continue the charade and forces Gazelle to free herself from the monsters, but the demon, who has been reunited with his beloved, refuses and reveals that the sword is fake. A demon destroys the miraculous sword, exposing the lie, and only then does Gazelle tell the monsters to retreat. Netellus reveals that she has likewise launched a horde of demons into the kingdom of Foul, but Helen and Ruri reveal that the adventurers and the rest of the people are working for free to defend the kingdom. Humiliated, the prince tries to murder Foul's father, but Al saves him at the last minute with a radish. Netellus orders his guards to execute his enemies, but having witnessed the situation, the men refuse, so the defeated prince is arrested. Foul hugs Al and tells him that he wants to marry him, which makes his two companions jealous, and although the young man tells him that they cannot marry because of the class difference, the proud king welcomes him to the family by making the bland super uncomfortable with everyone. Reeks later appears to the king, giving him proof of Netellus' scam, but warns him that the documents imply that the prince is working for someone else, as well as revealing that he is part of the shadow puppet group. Back home, Al is greeted as a hero and the princess arrives at the Adventurers Guild office with rewards from the crown and gratitude for protecting the kingdom. In addition, the adventurers thank Al as now his reputation has improved a lot and job offers rain down on them. The princess becomes affectionate with Al and both Helen and Ruri become jealous as they must now compete with a princess, who is too familiar to them. In true Clark Kent style, the princess leaves and appears and introduces herself to Ruri, who is immediately identified as her rival for the young farmer's heart. Later, while Sao is working, Foul and Ruri ask him which of the two they like better, but he ignores them, giving importance to his garden. When Ruri asks him if there is anyone else, he answers yes, and walks away, leaving them astonished. After, Al leaves his best vegetables on the table in front of a photo where he is hugging a mysterious girl. We go back 15 years in Al's past. That even as a child he is super efficient as a young farmer. Lucica gets angry with the young man's father because he thinks that the man forces his son to do all the heavy lifting, which gets him into trouble even though it is not like that. Nearby, a couple of farmers are angry because they have caught the little orphan thief Mangilvia because she has stolen too much from them. She manages to escape back to the mountains. He follows her and leaves her food. While at first she is reluctant, but every day, Al comes to visit her and feeds her food while she slowly opens up. The two young men become friends and share lunch, but one day, luck runs out and the farmers soon catch her. The farmers have decided to sell her as a slave to recover the losses, which leads us to think about how much she could have stolen, or in any case, how much a slave leaves in that world. Although Al pleads with him and promises that he will grow enough produce to compensate them, he does not succeed. Suddenly Al's father appears carrying a sack of rice and tells the farmers that he will give them the rice as it covers the losses of the stolen vegetables. Partly out of respect and partly out of fear, the farmers accept the offer and leave satisfied. The children are safe, but the one who will not be safe will be Al's father, when he must explain to Lucica that he lost his rice, but that is a problem for later, and the kind man invites the girl to eat with them at home. Our heroes enter, but Al notices something strange in the guards since instead of holding spears, they are using mops. This catches his curiosity, but he still continues to explore. The rest of the village is not too different since people are doing their daily tasks, but they perform them robotically, plus the look in their eyes does not seem to be normal, and even two people carry it like a sack of potatoes and take it away. Later the two visit the shop of Linnea's father, who specializes in relaxing crystals, and the young woman tells our hero to be careful. The next day, the attitude of the villagers does not change and Al meets the Lord of the Lands, Lenniruhorn, who does not seem to be affected by the force that makes people act strangely. Lenniru realizes that Al has a necklace similar to his and invites him that night to dinner, which our hero accepts before being dragged away by two strange characters for the second time. Al realizes that the citizens are mesmerized and both he and Lines suspect that Lenniru might be involved, because despite the strange things that happen, he never bothered to ask the capital for help. Anyway, despite Linnea's concern, our hero tells her that all doubts will be resolved tonight at dinner. Our heroes arrive at the mansion and sit down to eat, but before they start socializing, Lemuro causes Al to be attacked by his guards, whom he easily defeats. However, when our hero attacks Lemuro, Linnea stands between the two, protecting the villain since he holds his parents hostage. Al realizes that Romola is possessed by the demon Vertra and through a magic crystal has hypnotized all humans. Desiring the strength of Al, whose reputation has risen in the demon world, Vertra had Linnea lure Al there so that Vertra could implant the crystal into Al's body and hypnotize everyone using her natural power. All seems to be lost, but suddenly, Helen and Rory destroy the crystal and put an end to hypnosis. Al reveals that those two people who kidnapped him all the time were not hypnotized merchants, but were his friends who served as emergency reinforcement, kept secret from Linnea in case she was also hypnotized. Al helps Romola expel Vertra from his body by filling his mouth with asparagus, with which Romola is obsessed, and Al defeats Vertra. Linnea lets Al keep the necklace as a souvenir and then kisses him, declaring that when he is old enough she will marry him, and if he has already married another woman he will steal it for herself. On the way home, the jealous Helen and Rory punish Al for the kiss. While helping Al with his fields, SYNOPSIS notices that Helen and Rory are wearing the necklaces Linnea gave them and is told that it is a memento from one of their adventures. This makes the princess jealous, and even more so when she learns that the gift comes from Linnea, since she realizes the Preza pattern. Every time the boy goes on an adventure, he returns with a new friend. Helen and Rory realize the same thing and worry that one day, the young man's kindness may cost him too expensive. The three young women go to confront Al but stop when they notice him down, something that is not common in the boy. It turns out that the source of Al's anger is having discovered that his fields are being invaded by bush killers, a kind of weed very difficult to kill that will consume his fields if he does nothing immediately. In the village, Al and her friends sell their vegetables when one of the adventurers greets him and tells him to visit the guild offices from time to time, as his friends want to talk to him. The king visits Al's post in disguise to convince him to marry SYNOPSIS. Anwar replies that he is not interested in marriage. The king ups the ante and offers him the best land and tools to work with. This offer is too good to be turned down, but Rory tells her that it is still too little for marrying someone she does not love. This comment angers Val, who is hiding from her father, and throws a potato at Rory, inadvertently hitting Al. While sleeping, Al has a brief vision of a winged woman who wants to communicate with him. Al wakes up only to find the king asking him if he accepts the offer, but when he says no, the monarch goes on his way until another day, when he tries again as he is determined to marry his daughter to the man he loves. Al buys herbicide to fight the bush killers with the money from the day's profits, but is distracted by saving a little girl from kidnappers. When our hero goes to see if the girl is okay, he discovers that the girl has horns and Reeks identifies her as Yuria, daughter and heiress of the demon king. Reeks tells the girl not to panic, after all he is also a demon, and tells her to trust Al in the same way, since he has proven to be a good person. The girl reveals that Volpe, her caretaker, had suddenly told her she was in danger and had teleported her away from her father's castle. She wants Al to escort her home across the ocean. Al accepts the mission in exchange for Reeks doing him a favor, to fumigate his fields in his absence. Reeks gladly accepts and asks him how he will cross the ocean, since renting a boat in such a short time would be very complicated, but he responds that he has another plan in mind. Using his physical abilities, our hero runs over the water with the girl in his arms, and although he tells him that he is going to sink, he responds that this will happen if he slows down, which will not happen. Sure enough, in record time, the two are able to arrive safely to the demon continent. When Al asks Yuria if she is okay, she replies that she is a little nauseous about the trip but tells him that it is the price to pay for helping her people and smiles. For a moment, seeing the demon smile, our hero briefly remembers his sister. On the beach, Volpe receives them, but to the surprise of Yuria, his former guardian, instead of helping them attacks them, so our hero is forced to fight him, convinced that he could be controlled by some external force. After a battle more complicated than it seemed, Al manages to defeat Volpe, fainting him with one blow. Al goes to see that Yuria is fine and turns his back on Volpe, who recovers immediately and begins to charge demonic power to attack him. Luckily for our heroes, Lucica, Al's mother, shows up and knocks Volpe out. When Al asks his mother what he does there, she replies that she learned of his new mission from Reeks and decided to follow him to help him. After berating her son for taking such a dangerous mission, Lucica tells him that he has only fainted by blow and the demon will come to his senses when he recovers, confirming suspicions that he was being controlled. The trio continues their journey, but something disturbs our hero regarding the presence of his mother in the place. In the castle of the demons, our heroes find the place full of them corpses of the guards and wonder who could have been able to do something like that, and Lucica believes that it could have been a case similar to Volpe, and it is likely that the guards have fought among themselves. Yuria enters the throne room crying and finds her father on the floor, although luckily the demon in this case is alive, only badly injured. Another of the guards comes to his senses and is happy to see that Yuria is safe and sound, but begs her to flee since they are no match for the mysterious demon girl. Suddenly Ael's mother attacks Yuria with a sword and the girl is rescued at the last minute by our hero who so much suspected. Al tells him that he knew that the woman in front of them is not his mother, because if she were, the moment she saw him on the beach she would have rushed towards him to break the bones of an embrace, as is her custom. The woman laughs and tells him that she is proud of him, since he was always very smart, revealing that she somehow knows him. Suddenly Lucica changes shape and it is revealed that in reality the enemy is nothing more and nothing less than her sister Ilvia. Al does not come out of her amazement and Ilvia reveals that she was resurrected by the evil god, who granted her overwhelming power. The young woman demonstrates her power when in a single blow she is able to destroy the entire floor of the castle without even exerting herself, but congratulates her brother for having been able to dodge the blow, a task that not many are able to carry out. Ilvia tells him that this speed is due to the evil god's blessing and reveals that Ael's nature lover ability, which makes him so strong, was actually a gift from the evil god. Al tells him that this is impossible since he never met the evil god, but his brother laughs and tells him that he knows him better than anyone. He then demands that Al swear allegiance to him or he will kill his family and friends. Ilvia grabs Yuria's neck and prepares to end the girl's life in front of a desperate Al who heals that he does not have the power to stop his uncontrolled sister. Suddenly the crystal of his pendant begins to glow, time suddenly freezes, and Al meets again with the winged woman, who reveals herself as good god, who takes away from Al the power of evil god and replaces it with his own, warning him that although he is not so powerful, he will serve him in this battle. With his new power, Al rescues Yuria, and uses his abilities to create bushkillers who are first a nuisance to Ilvia, but slowly their powers rise into a real fight. Volpe appears and although badly wounded, is able to attack Ilvia. Ilvia takes Volpe by the neck, but when she is overcome by the number of enemies, she decides to retreat until the next one, promising to see Al soon. Volpe attacks Al, believing that he has unholy intentions with Waituria, but the girl and the demon king stop him and fix the misunderstanding. With things calmer, Al asks the king if he knows anything about the god of evil, but the king replies that although it is related to his ancestors, all the books that refer to that ancient evil have been destroyed, but he promises our hero that if he finds out something he will tell him immediately. Fal Ys leaves the palace while his sinister maid, Albi, acts as her body double as she spends time with Al. Fal believes that it was the evil god who erupted the volcano when he was young and asks Testa about it, but Testa does not remember anything. A invites Testa to visit him in the city, but the young man, although grateful for the investment, tells him that he does not have time. When Al walks away, Testa tells himself that for some reason, he cannot leave the city. On the way to the capital, Al almost loses to an orc and realizes that losing the evil god's major lover ability has cost him most of his power. Reeks delivers a letter from Lysica, who is in the midst of a major investigation. Al decides to continue as a normal farmer/adventurer until he can learn more about evil god. Bilvia can't wait to see Al again. In this way ends this exciting series. Do not forget that if you liked it and want to see summaries of similar series, you just have to let me know in the comments. I for my part say goodbye, but not before reminding you that if you have not subscribed, you can do it with a single click, and in this way we will continue to grow as a community. See you in the next one. Greetings.